a dairy-free, nut-free 30-day approach to keto, just because those are two of the foods that I find people overconsume. And, you know, I mean, just go to Costco, get a thing of salted cashews, and try and eat one handful.
Yeah, it's impossible.
They're so good. And you just keep eating them. They're like, oh, it's keto, it's low in carbs. But really, you're having 4 or 5 handfuls a day, and you're not losing weight, or you're eating 3 cheese sticks, you know, per day. And you're like, I don't understand. I'm in ketosis, but I'm not losing weight.
Do you know when you're in ketosis by the way you feel without having to test? Is that something that you could feel?
Now that I've been doing it for so long,
yeah,
for sure. I definitely know when I'm in ketosis, and I know when I'm not in ketosis. You know, whether I'm 0.4 or 1.4, I can't really tell a huge difference. You know, like for me, anything above 0.5 is obviously nutritional ketosis, but you know, for me, I know if I'm not in ketosis for sure. Yeah. And the interesting thing that you say, that the reason you brought that up makes me think about people who have never experienced what it's like to be in ketosis. I think it's worth at least giving it a shot to understand what we're talking about, right? A lot of people like what we're saying about the mental clarity and only wanting to eat 2 meals a day and being able to go a long period of time without food. But you have to get adapted. You have to give your body time to adapt. Like people want that to happen on day one. Like, this sucks. My body doesn't feel good, you know? And they're
the withdrawal symptoms that we talked about.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people cut it short. I just had a friend of mine who's like, dude, he was like a week and a half in. He wasn't there yet. And he's like, this is too hard. Yeah. I'm like, okay, at least you gave it a try, but you're going to need at least 30 days, in my opinion, to really experience and feel that.
I love it. Actually, in my Keto Camp Academy, I have a 28-day keto jumpstart. It takes for me, it takes 28 days to teach the body how to have this metabolic flexibility so they don't feel like crap anymore, because you could feel worse before you feel better. Exactly. Especially if you've been a sugar burner for a long time. But there's not one way to do keto. There's thousands and thousands. If we go on Dr. Google right now on this computer and put what is the keto diet, we'll get 183 million results, dude. Really? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you teach it. What is clean keto according to you, what you talk about in the book? Talk about clean keto, and then let's talk about dirty keto. Yeah,
so first of all, my keto journey has evolved or transitioned. If you go back and look at when I first did keto, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So it's like, all right, just cut out carbs, eat everything else that's high in fat and low in carbs. And it was, I wouldn't say more of a dirty keto approach, but it was an uneducated form of keto. And now it's evolved into where I feel like complete keto is the most bang for your buck out there, the cleanest way to do keto, in my opinion. So what I've discovered is my body, there's different levels of keto too. Like when I first did it, going from what I was eating before to that, like that was an amazing step. But since then, there's been other amazing steps to where I've like, okay, this worked for a while, but now that I'm 3-4 years in, do I still eat the same way that I did back then? No, I'm always changing, evolving, upgrading. And so my perception of clean keto is a whole food approach, right? The issue that we have, and this goes for every popular diet out there, is once a diet becomes popularized, like keto or vegan or paleo, is we start coming up with these convenience products. Because in America, we like convenience products. So, okay, how can we make keto more convenient? Well, we're going to need keto pizza. We're going to need keto bread. We're going to need keto cupcakes, keto cookies, keto desserts. And we start creating these other categories of, you know, they fit into that lifestyle. But the problem is people gravitate towards that, the easy stuff, even though it's not the cleanest ingredients and the healthiest ingredients. But yeah, it's technically keto. You could stay in ketosis eating these foods, but we never change our behavior. And that's where people are like, I'm gaining weight, I don't understand, or I'm still inflamed, and I'm doing keto. And like you said, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So you got to experiment. You got to find what works best for you. And yes, is there a time and place for these keto convenience treats? For sure. Yeah, I'm not saying I never consume those. I definitely do. But it's just being aware of when to plug those into my diet. And then the dirty keto, that's something that, you know, obviously has evolved and it's become popularized as well, because let's face it, we like convenience, right? That's why we have Uber Eats on our phone, or we have fast food right by us. So the problem is, don't fall into that trap of only eating these highly processed meats, these highly processed cheeses and dairy, and these keto treats. And that's the mistakes that people make on keto, is they just go dirty keto. And yes, you can lose weight, you can stay in ketosis eating those foods. I've seen a ton of people do it, but does that equate to better health? Probably not over the long term. you know, for most people. And so that's kind of where we try and get people from A to Z. We're like, okay, you're going to do keto, go all the way over here and be a purist and never touch that food. For some people that works. For most people, it's like, oh, okay, let's go from A to B, B to C, C to D, and then like they start consuming your content, my content, other people's content, these books, these podcasts, and they start learning, okay, maybe I should cut out like these keto treats, or maybe I should cut out dairy for 30 days and see how my body responds. So that's what my book, Complete Keto, does. Is it's a dairy-free, nut-free 30-day approach to keto, just because those are two of the foods that I find people overconsume. And, you know, I mean, just go to Costco, get a thing of salted cashews and try and eat one handful.
Yeah, it's impossible.
They're so good. And you just keep eating them. They're like, oh, it's keto, it's low in carbs. But really, you're having 4 or 5 handfuls a day, and you're not losing weight, or you're eating 3 cheese sticks, you know, per day. And you're like, I don't understand. I'm in ketosis, but I'm not losing weight.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you bring this up, because there's no cookie cutter approach to keto.
Yeah.
And there's so much information out there, because if somebody, like I mentioned, goes on Dr. Google and they type in, how do I follow a keto diet? They're going to get a leading authority who tells you to do it this way.
Yeah.
And they're going to get a leading authority who tells you to do it the complete opposite way. And then it leaves the person paralyzed.
Yeah.
So something I've learned from my experience, not just with health, but studying successful entrepreneurs, people that I admire, I used to be all over the place. I used to study 20, 30, 40 people, read different books, and I was just confused.
Yeah.
So my advice to people is pick some people that you like their personality.
Yeah.
They have the track record. They're getting great results, and you follow them. You experiment with them, and if it works, you continue doing it. Because if you follow this person, that woman, it's just going to leave you confused. So I love how you teach that.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. It's very easy to understand, by the way. This book right here, it's exactly what the title says, Complete Keto.
Complete.
So, speaking of ingredients and these keto being popular, we go to Whole Foods, we go to the gas station, you'll see bars that say keto on it.
Yeah.
Just like gluten-free, just like organic. It doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this happens to you all the time. Companies reach out to you and say, hey, I want you to try our product in exchange for promoting it.
Yeah.
Happens to me all the time too. And I had a company recently, I'm not going to name who they were, but they had this keto granola. And they sent it to me. And then I reviewed the ingredients, because I didn't look at the gluten-free. I didn't look at the organic. I looked at the ingredients. And it said canola, and I'm and I wrote them back. I'm like, do you know you have canola in your product? It creates inflammation around your cells, and I wouldn't consume that or teach that. And they're like, oh, you know, thank you for your consideration. So it's having that awareness that you talk about, that I talk about, and we're not going to be perfect. Sometimes I'll consume canola and I don't know it, but if you understand and look at the ingredients, you won't be fooled by marketing.
Exactly, and that's really smart. And see, that's for everyone listening out there. Like you've done the research, and that's where you're at. And for other people, they'll listen to that and be like, oh, that's too confusing. It's too hard for me to look at that. Like, okay, maybe you're not there yet, but you listening to this, like maybe one day it'll hit you where you're like, okay, I'm going to be more aware. Like 2020, I'm going to upgrade. I'm going to elevate myself to become more aware and, you know, be more responsible for the things I'm putting in my body. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, I get that all the time with companies sending me stuff. And I tell people this all the time. You could drink Diet Coke and chug vegetable oil all day and probably stay in ketosis. Yeah, for sure. And you might even lose weight. Is that healthier for you? Probably not. Like that's like really unhealthy, right? But I think one of the myths that people that I see in the keto space is just because you're in ketosis doesn't mean you're going to lose weight and doesn't mean you're becoming healthier. I think people mistake, and they'll prick their finger and say, oh, I'm at 1.0, but I'm not losing weight and I'm still inflamed. There's just that number on your blood ketone meter doesn't equate to better health. And people do that with the scale too, thinking, oh, I'm losing weight, therefore I'm becoming healthier. Not necessarily. You could be losing muscle mass and losing weight on the scale, and that looks great, but that doesn't equate to better health. So that's one of the mistakes, one of the myths that I see people, in the keto space that people tend to make.
Yeah, I see it too.